Welcome back to Yelena Talks. This is now my 10th podcast, and the topic of the week has been limiting beliefs. So, if you've been following me, I've been talking a lot about limiting beliefs on social media this week, and honestly, I look at this concept of limiting beliefs interchangeably with the idea of self-sabotage. So, why do I say sabotage? I think anytime you limit your success, your ability to prosper, especially if you are a kingdom person, like a child of God, then you're sabotaging or limiting the success and power that I believe God wants to release through you. So I will get into lots of different examples. I think that's going to be helpful. I just did a webinar actually this week for July, and the topic was the illusion of control. And the subheading was breaking free from sabotaging patterns. And I went a lot in depth about talking about how, we have free will. I believe like God gives us free will to choose, because I think if we don't have the ability to choose and make a decision, let's say even who we love or what we do, then that's not free will. But the problem, I think, is because we live in such a fallen world where we get, if I could say, influenced or hindered in the fullest capacity of freedom. Because the Bible even talks about where the spirit is, there is freedom. And if you don't feel freedom in any area of your life, then I would argue how much of the spirit is there. And the opposite of spirit, in my opinion, is things like bondage, religion, rules. I mean, anything that tries to control you, box you in, tap you out, and just like, again, limit your ability to flourish. And more specifically, what do I think gets in the way? Well, I look at it as old programs or old programming. What is that? That could be things like what culture are you from, what era, what education status do you have, what neighborhood, what church political system you're under. I'm not saying things are bad, but I think the problem is if you are not prospering and more specifically, if you're not experiencing freedom in certain areas, then I think that's not good. So I'm not here to label what's good or bad. I mean, for one person, it's amazing. For another person, it's an obstacle. So you just have to kind of do a little bit of like self-reflection, processing, and recognize where you limited and why. And, you might grow up with something and that's all you know, and it's familiar. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean it's good. And how do you know if it's not good? I think you will lack that level of peace, flourishment, and fruit in your heart. And if you feel like you're in the inside of you is hell, then you got to really be realistic and see who's the master of that and why you are under that regime. But anyways, moving on. So we have these factors that I think God wants us to have full freedom for us to decide and have the courage to move in the direction we decide. I want to see, let's say, results in my business life, my personal life, my professional, my friendships, my romantic life. I want the fullest level of freedom and glory and power. And I think that in itself shouts like the power of God. And when we are limited and we're just like struggling and striving and we don't have peace or enjoyment, I just don't see how that helps anybody. And I think I just kind of struggle. I mean, maybe I'm immature in this aspect, but I struggle with people emphasizing their hardships and pointing glory to God. Because maybe I have my limited experiences in this lifetime. I recognize that, but I've worked enough in the counseling realm to see half the time the things people struggle with, it's practically self-inflicted, or at least it's generationally inflicted. And then you get to decide, do you want to break off of that generational family bondage and do things different? And, the amount of people that say no is actually surprising. Or here's another one. The amount of people that complain about their life situations and do nothing other than continue to complain, that to me is also very mind-boggling. So I think this is where this concept of self-sabotage or even limiting beliefs comes in. Because we can all say, I want fun and joy and prosperity and abundance and, experience kingdom life and la la la. But if you are identifying areas you're struggling or you're not seeing the results you want to see, I'm at this point, from my experiences in my own life and things I've seen, the more I free things up inside of me, heal, first of all, and secondly, move and pivot in the direction that I want to go, even if the mass is not there. You know, the mass of people struggling, staying behind, somewhat choosing to stay behind. You know, as maybe you can say, I don't know any pioneer ever who's went forward and didn't question if they're on the right path. And so I just, the more I move in the direction I want to go and leave behind people who just want to stay stuck and complain, the more I just see just abundance and joy. The other night I was like reflecting on this concept of the desires of my heart. And I can finally say that in my life, there are specific areas such as my own romantic love life, relationship life. I am finally experiencing the desires of my heart. And I remember for the longest time, just I would pray about this topic and I really did not date at all. I just really believed God would have an amazing person for me, but you know, there comes a point where you pray for the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over, and nothing's happening, and you really start to question, like, what's wrong with me? Does God care? Does he even hear me? And I remember I got to this point where it's like, wow, I feel like I'm a successful woman in regards to business and anything like works related, like, again, business, life, working, creating this, you know, the things that I can at least have control in. I don't care if it was ministry stuff, schooling, building businesses at this point. I just was like, oh God, I kind of feel like I'm a servant where I steward your professional business so well. But what about my personal life? Like, what about my heart's desires? What about what I want to feel and experience? And obviously, being in my 20s at the time, or late 20s, I was like, yeah, obviously, I'm talking about my personal love life. Because I'm watching other people start to create their own families, and that's a good thing. But I was starting to get a little concerned about my own life. And luckily, you know, I've mentioned before in previous podcasts, that's when I reached out to a coach/counselor. And at first I thought I was going to talk to her about business stuff because I did have some business questions. But it kind of came down to, I said, you know what? I'm just going to say how it is. I want to experience love. I already know, I'm convinced I'm going to experience abundance and blessings in my professional life. That's fine. I'm not worried about that. It will get figured out. Like, I know God's committed to helping me, and in some professional realms, like especially through counseling at the time, I knew people were being blessed and impacted, and I saw God's hand in that. But then I was like, what about my personal life? And I'm like, I'm not a slave. I'm God's daughter. And so I'm approaching my dad, the king, and asking him, what about that part of my life? You're seeing God. You see so much success and how many lives are touched from my business, professional side. But don't you think that even more like depth and transformation will happen when I experience my kingdom, marriage, and family, and the things that I will do with my partner? So I just got past any level of even shame or embarrassment that I feel like sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes in my culture that comes with being single and older. And I said, I'm getting help and I'm going to be bold about it, and I want to be loved and I want to experience love, and I'm going to do what I got to do. I'm not even embarrassed. And so I just remember I had this journal, like every girl, like when she's young, I had this like this entry that I wrote. It was like, I don't even know, I was probably like 22 or 14. No, I don't remember. I don't know. I just remember writing all these traits I wanted in my future guy, and you know, the same traits probably every girl ever writes. But this time I said, again, I want my heart's desires. And I've prayed so much. And Lord, I feel like those Bible verses, you put desires in people's hearts. Surely those are those puzzle pieces, that little compass that gets people to where they need to be. And I know I want a family. I want to experience community with my family and my children. So I'm going to believe this is a desire you put into my heart. So I want to pursue and experience this. And so I remember I had this experience where I was talking to my coach, counselor, and instead of me writing all these things I want about a guy, I wrote how I want it to feel. And I just allowed myself to experience or to imagine what it would feel like being pursued by a healthy, godly, masculine man, and what that would feel as a female on the receiving side. And so I just started to write things like, I want to be loved and adored and cherished and honored, and the way he looks at me and feels so beautiful. And I mean, I just expressed every heart desire I've ever wanted in regards to this topic. And so I'm just going to kind of skip in my story a little bit around. But if you listen to my webinar this week, I even mentioned I almost sabotaged that experience. And the crazy part is I still, like, the more I'm aware of this topic, because sabotaging patterns, it's anything that, let's say, hinders you, destroys you, limits you, takes away from your ability to be mentally, emotionally, physically healthy, right? And so now that I'm aware of this topic, I just really watch myself where I sabotage, or I might. And so anyway, so when I met my my guy, we were on a dating app. At the time, I wasn't really treating that too seriously. It was just kind of like an experiment, if I could say it like that. I was not taking it seriously, but not in a bad way. It wasn't going to do anything rude or anything, but I just kind of wanted to see, what is this experience like? Like, what is even this app? So shout out to Bumble to this success story. But I remember swiping on these guys, and really, some of them were really nice looking guys. And then I remember I saw my guy, and at the time, I didn't know who he was. And I was like, whoa, who is this handsome man? And I looked at his little profile, and he had a few pictures. He didn't even really write too much on his profile. But I just remember at first I was like, wow. And I cannot believe this, but I almost swiped like no. I almost did that until I, like, honestly, that was probably like an act of God or something that paused me, because I'm like, what are you doing? Like, he's handsome. He looks normal. Like, why are you saying no? Like, that does not even logically make sense. What are you doing? And instantly this almost like fear or limiting belief, self-sabotage, whatever you want to call it, came out, and it whispered back, oh, it's like, he just seems too manly, too handsome. Like, I only dreamed about guys like that. Guys like that don't pursue me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, talk about me learning a lot about myself in this experience and seeing what was hindering and coming up as patterns. And so good thing, again, act of God of how my whole story kind of happened. But good thing I paused myself and said, well, you're not really taking this experiment seriously, so just go with it. You never, just who cares? Who cares? Just go. No big deal. And so I swiped yes. And we got matched. We matched. And again, I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Is this real? And I had to, like, honestly, like, coach myself to be present and not freak out and abort and abandon something. And what was coming up, let's dig into that, ladies. If you are listening in this, you can identify with this. Good. I'm going to speak to you, because now that I'm experiencing legit the desires of my heart, I want it for every single girl. And I'm talking to those girls that already are very successful in business and professional life. You girls are responsible. You guys are driven. You guys get things done. You guys are those faithful stewards where God gives you a couple talents and you multiply it. No big deal. Like, you guys are phenomenal, and I've talked a lot about this. I've spoken to this type of woman, but I'm really getting down to, if you want to experience like the desires of your heart, the abundance in your personal, more specifically, even romantic life, then listen up. I know there's a lot of different angles and different topics we can also go into to clarify, but today I'm talking about limiting beliefs. And if you're taking this seriously and you are listening to me right now, then I invite you, take out a piece of paper or some notes and start jotting down in reflection, like, what limiting beliefs do you have? Because it's one thing to sit here and imagine. That's good. But the problem is, if we're not able to take, if I could say, heaven and pull it down to earth, that's that gap between what we desire and what we actually allow to receive into our life. And so, with my guy, we messaged a little bit. I still couldn't believe it. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm just going to play along, be nice and see, not really expecting anything crazy to happen. But we went on a date. And again, fast forward to now, we are together. And I kid you not, everything I wrote on that list of how I wanted to feel, again, it's not about what I wanted him to be. This is how I want to feel. My heart was like starved for that type of affection and love from, well, I guess not having much experience with that overall, but, these things we see in movies and whatnot, these like love stories or whatnot, or if I could say Hallmark 77 channel kind of stories. I'm telling you, till this day, I still feel so loved and adored and cherished. I just feel so beautiful with this person, and it's not to say that I wasn't in a fairly healthy, fairly healed spot in life, because we're never going to be perfect. But now I'm experiencing life with a man who even just adds to my life. He's not my life because I'm not codependent in that aspect. No, thank you. But he adds to like my joys and whatnot. And so these limiting beliefs I had to like confront as I went along. Like, what are some examples? So I mentioned like we dream about these desires, and then when it's in front of us, it's like, oh, I don't know if it's too real. And I think it comes back to, like, I don't know if I can receive it because it's too real. I think it comes back to that feminine energy that was necessary to be healed. Especially my girls who are so powerful in business, and that's a healthy level of masculine energy needed to build, to create, to move forward, to advance, right? That's a healthy level of just, again, masculine energy you need in life to get anything done, for being real. But that feminine side was that softness, the ability to be open, to trust, to believe and receive and be present and have some fun. And I remember, like, even on my first date with this guy, it was, I was, your girl was feeling herself, let me tell you. I was having a fun time, not taking it seriously, which again, I think really went in my benefit in this experience. But ladies, I want you to really, again, jot notes. What comes back up as a limiting belief? Is it what I want? It's too good to be true? Because if you believe that, then you will discount every opportunity that is true moving in your direction. Is it, someone's not going to like me as soon as they find out X, Y, and Z? Believe me, if you believe that, you will attract guys just like that. Or is it, well, first of all, let's make this distinction. If you do feel like you have some areas to heal, please do that. Again, I don't believe everyone's perfectly healed ever, but I think there comes a healthy healing that has to come in your masculine and energy, or masculine and feminine energy. So, I've been kind of talking about anything that comes up that tries to limit. And I think of it as like even like lies from the devil, literally. Like, you think the devil wants you to experience a loving, beautiful, fulfilling relationship that's healthy? No. So he's going to insert anything he can in your brain to make you feel like you're unworthy, who's going to really want you, you've never had it before, So have those core wounded areas and pair it with high masculine energy where you're so independent, you do everything by yourself, and that's not independence. I mean, I'm talking about wounded energy, and that is you like unable to be open up and relax and trust people. Well, first of all, you can't let anyone in, and second of all, the only person or type of person you'll be able to attract is someone very similar, and I don't think you're going to like the results of that. And so by default, that is not the desire of your heart. So if you want the desire of your heart, you have to, get to a point where you are so healthy you can receive that and be that. And I think the worst thing is like, yeah, and just like remember, Bill Johnson had this example. I really liked it. And he was talking about, how sometimes someone gives us a compliment, we're like, oh, that's all God. And that's not humility. That's just this inability to receive a healthy level of pride or grace, or just recognizing, yes, God gifted you in these areas and you're using this gift. No, oh, it's not me, it's God. That's so distasteful when people do that. I honestly think when I hear people talk like that, it's just like a level of woundedness again, where they're not able to just like receive and smile and say thank you. And, if they want to say praise God after that, that's fine. But Bill Johnson had this example of like, if you have a child and your child, let's say, is musical and would love, like, wants to play guitar, like, you're not gonna, as a loving parent, you're not gonna shove a guitar at him and be like, you better learn it and you better play it. You can, but that's not what I'm talking about. But when you have a child and you want to see them learn how to play and master this instrument and do well and smile and love it and show their talent and skill, you're going to want to get the best guitar for this child. And when you give that child a gift, the best thing this child can do is receive it and honor this gift and just go for it fully and play songs and learn. And the worst thing this kid could do would be like, wow, God or Dad, thank you so much for this guitar, and just put it on a little in the corner of the room and be like, I'm not going to play because I'm not worthy. God's like, no, it's for you. I want you. I actually put gifts in you to be able to play well, to play beautiful music that just, I don't know, inspires other people, or some famous piece that's going to be produced. And I think sometimes we do that, actually, oftentimes we do that. Like, oh, that'd be so cool if I had a husband that loved me and cherished me. And that'd be so cool if I had a business where I could help women and do nonprofit. That'd be so cool, amazing if I could play guitar. And then God gives us these opportunities to give us these gifts. And then what do? Again, we disqualify ourselves. Our limiting beliefs come up. We, on a conscious or even oftentimes subconscious level, completely, like, we won't even approach that. In fact, it's the craziest thing with these principles. You can say it's psychologically, you can say it's spiritual. To me, it's the same thing. We will literally go to the opposite side of the room if we have this deep unworthiness that will not even allow us to come close in the presence of whatever gift we desire. That's powerful. And I feel like my goal has been to balance out my logical mind and that emotional side, because I think that's the definition of wisdom. You can balance thought and emotion really well. But yeah, I think like if your goal is, I don't know, let's get really specific. Let's say your goal is to have like 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Or personal life, let's say you want to go out and experience, I don't know, in the next month, let's pretend 3 dates with 3 different types of guys. Okay, let's get logical. What does that mean? Because sometimes people so over spiritualize it, it's actually a shortcut for them not wanting to do anything or take the risk and boldness. And sometimes we want, again, this concept of free will. It's like we are asking God to shove things onto us, even though still we might reject it. But the other aspect is you're supposed to steward your life. So get up and do something about it. Like, like take tangible steps to achieve that. Like, again, be a normal functioning citizen on this planet. So like with YouTube, if I'm just gonna wish for 5,000 subscribers and I post 2 videos that are 30 seconds long, and I'm like asking God if it's meant to be, make a miracle and do X, Y, and Z, I just don't know how practical that is. Not to say God can't, but if everyone had that attitude, it doesn't even make any sense. And so tangibly, practically speaking, I'd probably have to release more videos, try to do different length of videos, maybe even different topics, and get feedback. I mean, ultimately, it's not even just the destination as much as it's the process, because the second scenario, I will find out way more about myself, who I love speaking to, what type of clients I attract, what videos I love doing and producing. And when I really tap into like bullseye, like what I love to do, boom, I'll probably surpass my 5,000 subscribers, and I will enjoy it and people will be edified. That's the goal. You experiencing life, you being the king, queen in this earth and stewarding God's kingdom so beautifully. I can't emphasize that enough. That's that abundance, heaven on earth. Or even like, okay, personal life example. If your goal is to go on a date with 3 guys, just 3 different type of guys, just try to experience what it's like. Again, people sometimes sit at home and like literally do nothing, and it's like, what are you gonna do? Date your postal service guy, FedEx, and whatever homeless guy walks by? Like, no, like you gotta put yourself out there. And I'm not saying like be aggressive. Like, I'm not asking you to be aggressive and make people subscribe to your YouTube channel or stalk them. I'm not saying that. Just like I'm not saying go after every guy and like beg them or force them to go on a date. Like, of course, I'm not talking about that either. But there's a healthy level of like, okay, go present yourself. Maybe it's simple things like going on a dating app. Maybe it's talking to people. Maybe it's group settings. I mean, you got to at least present yourself. I mean, it's like pretty biblical. Which I can go really deep into this. I've had a trillion discussion about girls that are like, I'm at places, I go places, I'm everywhere, and they're just not approaching me. And if I were to diagnose what's really going on, they come off as so cold or standoffish or scary and intimidating. No, side note, your accomplishments and degrees are intimidating. Your presence and attitude is like scary, not in a good way. And at the core of it, usually it's woundedness, but I'm not going into that right now. Anyways, my point being, like, you got to put yourself out there in practical ways, but better yet, the more you are healed and do the work and open yourself up, like the more you do that work inside of you, the more you're going to flourish. So of course I can think of so many different examples, but ladies, you're not liking what you're seeing, here's your homework assignment. This helps me a lot. Write out what patterns you see and do it maybe across different areas of life, like business, friendship, romantic, family, and then specifically write down, like, let's say the type of guys you're dating, or maybe it's business, the type of partnerships you've been having. What's the theme? What role do you end up having? Where do you feel like you miss out, or things come out to a certain way, and after a certain mile marker, things break off? Maybe your first 2 years of business, you're successful, and after that, something happens. What's going on? What's the pattern? What's triggering that? What's happening around your 2-year mark that business starts to fade? What's going on? Believe me, it's not external stuff. It's going to be deep stuff inside of you if it's a pattern. Same thing with guys. Like, you write down your pattern. Oh, I noticed every time I meet guys, things go so fast, so quick. That's wonderful. And then like within 3 weeks, it's like boring and we're done. That's a pattern. Where are you self-sabotaging? What's this dynamic? And sometimes I think it's so helpful to not sometimes. I think it's absolutely important to have mentors and counselors. I found that in my community, I say community, just roughly speaking, that could be from church to school to neighborhood to family. Like growing up, I don't feel like for whatever reason, I really had I had good women who are hard workers around me, but I didn't really have too many women who would say things like, you will experience the desires of your heart and here's how it's done. Like I don't really have that. Honestly, I had to actually find that. Praise God I did, because my life has changed and I have the desires of my heart now, which is why I'm passionate in helping other women. But what was I saying? It's important for you to just kind of start to track what's going on. And yes, counsel, advisors, that spiritual mothers, fathers, that is so good. And when you find a person in your life that can like help you understand these principles, these abstract principles, and apply them into regular life, that's gold, let me tell you. So do some homework, everybody. Limiting beliefs, because your life, again, will absolutely show what you are experiencing. If you don't like the word manifest, then use the word replicate or represent, whatever word triggers you less. You can listen to my podcast last week about triggers about that. But anyways, I wish you all the best, and I'm going to encourage my girls. I think I'm going to speak more and more about this topic. I just have a heart for my girls who are hard, amazing, good workers and want to experience like genuine love, desires of their heart. And that's something that I'm so like, the more I do this, the more I'm like, dang, I just want these girls to experience, because it's possible. Did I have to break off some, again, limiting beliefs that were holding me back from stepping into like the new and the different? Yeah. Am I still working on that? Yeah. Do I still regularly have now a coach/counselor that I go to? Yes. And the more I just step out in courage and boldness, the more abundance I keep on experiencing. And at this point, I've experienced way too much abundance to ever go back. And that's a good thing. I think there's a lot of people that don't understand me. But again, I just remember sometimes the advice I'd get was just so, I think they meant it well, but it was just bad. I'm sorry. It was bad. And anything that would ever tell me to just like settle less than what I really believed God as my father wanted to, I'm so grateful I didn't listen to that. I'm so grateful that God never let me even settle. And again, I was so grateful to experience some level of just like mentorship and encouragement that gave me actual tangible results on earth. And so as I close, I'm going to remind you all, I do have a 8-week program, and I'm almost like rebranding it a little bit because I'm still doing this work with girls, but I really want to continue to like chisel my message. And I want my program to be, I'm still reprogramming the brain because I love that. And there's a lot of psych that I can explain. And I go through assessments where I help you guys see where you're struggling, what's going on. As you talk to me and identify goals, I use my experience, personal, professional, to help you get the results that you want. But the purpose of this program is helping you experience the desires of your heart fulfilled, right? Seeing the fruit of that fulfillment and abundance in both your business and personal life. Because I'm sure you ladies are already so professional and amazing in business, but I believe God the Father would love for you to rejoice and experience his daughter's heart be fulfilled in terms of love. And so if you're interested and you want to know more, you can always email me, connect@YelenaTalks.com, or you can DM me on Instagram. I'm just really looking forward to this new adventure that I'm stepping into. And I really want to say this loud. I'm committed to continue to move towards abundance in the way that I understand God wants it. And if you want to experience that abundance, then join me and let's go together. So God bless you all. Have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you later.